I took the night shift at that storage facility because it paid $4 more an hour than anything else in town. Nobody told me why. 3 months in, I finally understood. And by then, I'd already made the mistake of opening Unit 213. My name doesn't matter for this story, so I'll just tell you what happened. The facility was called Ironview Storage, out on Route 9, about 20 minutes past where the streetlights stop. 600 units, 3 buildings, 1 overnight guard. Me. The job was simple. Sit in the office, do a walkthrough every 2 hours, check that the gates were locked, log anything unusual. For the first few weeks, unusual meant a raccoon in the dumpster or a customer showing up at 2 a.m. to grab something out of their unit because they couldn't sleep. Then I met Frank. Frank had worked the night shift before me for 11 years, according to the manager. He was training me for exactly 1 night before he retired. He was maybe 60, thin, the kind of quiet that makes you nervous. Halfway through the walkthrough, he stopped in front of Building C, Row 2. "Never go near 213, he said. "Not even during the day. Not even if you hear something. Especially not if you hear something." I laughed. I thought it was some kind of hazing thing, an old-timer messing with the new guy. He didn't laugh back. "I'm serious," he said. "Whatever they're storing in there, it's not stopped by a lock. The lock is just so people don't look." Then he walked off, finished the tour, and clocked out for the last time. I never saw him again. For the first month, I followed his advice without question. I did my walkthroughs, and when I got to Row 2 of Building C, I just walked a little faster. It was easy to ignore, honestly. Unit 213 looked exactly like every other unit. Same rusted orange door, same dent near the bottom, same coat of dust. The only difference was the sound. Not every night. Maybe 2 or 3 times a week, always between 2 and 3 a.m. A low, dragging sound, like something heavy being pulled slowly across a concrete floor. Followed by silence. Then, sometimes 3 slow knocks. From the inside. I told myself it was pipes. Old buildings settle. Metal expands and contracts with temperature. I had a dozen explanations ready before I even needed them. But explanations stopped mattering after enough nights. By month 2, the knocking had a rhythm. Always 3. Always evenly spaced. Never 4, never 2. And one night, while I was logging the temperature outside, I heard something that made my hands go cold. Between the second and third knock, a voice, muffled through steel, saying my name. Not shouting it, not desperate, just calm, like it already knew I'd hear it, like it had all the time in the world. I didn't go near Building C for the rest of that shift. I should have quit. I want to be very clear about that, looking back. I should have walked into the office the next morning and quit on the spot. Instead, I did something worse. I got curious. I pulled the facility's old paper records, the kind that predate the computer system, stored in a filing cabinet nobody had touched in years. I found the original rental agreement for Unit 213. It was rented 43 years ago. The renter's name was blacked out. Not redacted with a black bar like a legal document. Blacked out with what looked like a marker. Pressed hard enough to tear the paper underneath in places. Whoever did it didn't want anyone reading that name again. There was a note clipped to the file, handwritten, no signature. Payment is automatic. Do not attempt to contact the account holder. Do not open under any circumstance per agreement with previous ownership. If knocking occurs, do not respond. If your name is used, it is not addressing you. I read that last line probably 10 times. It is not addressing you. I didn't understand what that meant. Not yet. That night, the knocking came earlier than usual. 1:47 a.m., 3 knocks. Then my name again, closer to the door this time, like whatever was saying it had moved. And then, for the first time, a second voice. Underneath the first. Overlapping it. Saying my name at the exact same time. Half a second out of sync, like an echo that arrived too early instead of too late. I finally understood what the note meant. It wasn't calling me. It was rehearsing me. I quit that night. I didn't even finish the shift. I called my manager at 4 in the morning, told him I was done, and drove home with my hands shaking on the wheel the entire way. He didn't argue. He didn't even ask why. He just said, "Yeah, that's usually when people quit," and hung up. 2 weeks later, I drove past Ironview Storage during the day just to see it in daylight, to convince myself it had all been exhaustion and imagination playing tricks on a tired night guard. There was a new guard doing the daytime walkthrough. Young, maybe 20. I watched him do his rounds through Bureau. I told myself that was the end of it. Quitting was supposed to be the end of it. But 6 months later, I got a phone call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer. I'm glad I did, because if I hadn't, I never would have understood how big this actually was. It was the new guard, the kid I'd seen doing rounds that day in the parking lot. He found my name in an old shift log, tracked down my number through the manager, and called me at 11 at night because he said he didn't know who else would believe him. He'd started hearing the knocking 2 weeks earlier. Right on schedule. Exactly like Frank said it would happen. Exactly like it happened to me. But he told me something I didn't know. Something Frank never told me, and something that note in the filing cabinet never mentioned. Unit 213 wasn't the only one. He'd been doing inventory during the day shift, cross-referencing old rental agreements for a corporate audit, and he found 3 more units across the property with the exact same clause. Automatic payment, no contact with the account holder. Same warning about knocking. Same line about names not being an address. Units 108, 340, and 512. All 4 were rented within the same 6-month period, 43 years ago. All 4 by accounts that no longer existed anywhere in any banking system he could trace. All 4 still paid automatically every single month like clockwork from sources that led nowhere when he tried to follow them. I asked him the only question that mattered. Had he heard more than one voice yet? He went quiet for a long time on the phone. Then he said yes. 3 nights ago. 2 voices. Mine, apparently. And another one he didn't recognize, but which he was certain belonged to someone else who used to work there. I asked what he was going to do. He said he already knew the answer. Everyone always knows the answer. You quit. You warn the next person. You never go back. That's the arrangement. That's how it's worked for 43 years, and probably longer than that, if you go back through however many guards came before Frank. I asked him one more thing before we hung up. I asked if he'd looked up what happened to the original building 43 years ago, before it became a storage facility. He had. It used to be a private research annex attached to a hospital that closed down after a licensing scandal. The official story was equipment failures and unsafe conditions. The unofficial story, the one that only shows up in a handful of old local newspaper archives if you dig deep enough, mentioned 4 patients who were listed as transferred to another facility. No other facility ever had a record of receiving them. I don't know what's actually inside those 4 units. I don't think I want to know. But I know that whatever it is, it figured out a very simple, very patient strategy a long time ago. And it hasn't needed to change it since. It doesn't break out. It doesn't need to. Breaking out gets you caught, gets you hunted, gets the story told in a way people believe. Instead, it waits behind a legal contract nobody questions. Inside a building nobody suspects, using nothing but sound and patience and the average person's instinct to protect the next stranger in line rather than expose what they saw. Every guard who quits becomes part of the wall around it. Every warning passed down becomes another year it stays hidden. I think about that kid sometimes. I think about whether he's still working there or whether he already quit and passed the warning to someone else. The way it was passed to him, the way it was passed to me. I think about the other 3 units. 108, 340, 512. I wonder how many voices are layered inside each one by now. I wonder how long a voice has to be borrowed and rehearsed before it stops being borrowed and starts being something else entirely. I never drove past Ironview Storage again after that phone call. I blocked the kid's number about a month later, not because I stopped caring, but because every time he called, he sounded a little more like he already knew something he wasn't telling me. And the last time he called, right before I blocked it, I picked up, and for just a second, before he said a single word, I heard 3 slow knocks in the background. Then his voice came through, completely calm, like nothing was wrong at all. He asked if I remembered his name. I realized, standing there with the phone against my ear, that he'd never actually told me.